generations to come.
Welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room. My name is Bill Finley. I'm a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Daily News, also the co-host of the Down the Stretch radio show on Sirius XM Radio.
How y'all doing? I'm Randy Moss with NBC Sports here in my home in Minnesota, where, what is it now? 11 below. Not too bad.
Yikes.
It's warming up.
Wow. Zoe Cadman here with First TV and Santa Anita. It's probably about 60 degrees. I'm getting ready to head up to the slopes and go skiing, where I hope it's a little colder than 50 degrees up there.
Randy, I have an important question for you. Does poor Lucy get to go outside this time of year? Or
Lucy, yeah, she does go outside. Obviously, she has to go outside. We keep a very clean house.
Right.
But she doesn't stay outside for long. She doesn't. I have a jacket, like a coat I put on her, and she runs out and she does her thing, and
and that's
comes
it.
right back in. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's always good to see you, Lucy. I hope you're doing well. So this episode of the Thoroughbred Daily News Writers Room podcast, they threw us a major curveball this morning. We were all set to talk about the Rebel Stakes, which we still will. I'm not sorry, the Risen Star Stakes at the fairgrounds, which we still will. But the story was this out of nowhere magnificent performance by the Steve Asmussen trained Magnitude, who won it 43-1. In fact, the horse that ran second, Chunk of Gold, was also 43-1. Hope you had this exacta, Zoe. $2 exacta paid $2,629.40. Other story is East Avenue at 4-5. The favorite didn't run a step. So, geez, what do we say? Magnitude is out of the Triple Crown. I presume he just has a bone chip. That's no big deal. I presume we'll be seeing him in the Travers and those sort of things. But I guess it's a little bit of a moot point. But, you know, Randy and Zoe, first of all, how good was this horse? I mean, he got the highest buyer figure. He blew away a good field, and he ran like it was a one-horse race.
There were a couple of points that people within the industry, horse players and horsemen alike and women, were debating in the aftermath of Magnitude. You know, first of all, where did that race come from? But what did it mean in terms of his performance? Because even Asmussen acknowledged after the race that the reason why Ben Curtis jacked that horse so aggressively to the lead is because Steve and Ben had seen as the card progressed that, in their opinion, speed and rail was dominant at the fairgrounds on Saturday. Now, even with that in mind, even knowing that, he still ran considerably faster than other good horses that had the speed and rail in races prior to that. So there was a debate, you know, what do you make of that? How much did the way the racetrack was playing help Magnitude? Can you really believe that 108 buyer? And then the other debate that we heard quite regularly, and which unfortunately now has reared its ugly head, is a horse running that fast in February, a 3-year-old, is that counterproductive to the horse's best interests? We've seen, you know, will the horse, quote, blow up after running such a fast speed figure? Because we've seen it time and time again, and that was a concern that Asmussen also had after the race. Was it too fast, too early for Magnitude? And I think what we've seen now, Zoe, is that it turns out that might have been prescient.
Might have been the case indeed, but boy, was he impressive. That was amazing to watch, because once he sent him so hard, he just clicked off at 12 and change, 12 and change, 12 and change, and just kept going. That's the longest stretch in North America. And at the quarter pole, I was like, wow, is he really going to keep going? He's probably going to falter. Looks like he's going to win. And he just kept going, and he kept going. He was like a rocket ship. He was amazing. And how about Winchell Thoroughbreds? You know, not both the Epicenter and Magnitude, by Not This Time, both owned by Winchell Thoroughbreds. What's with the earthquake references? I mean, they're pretty cool names, Magnitude and Epicenter. You don't get much better than that. So it's a shame. Hopefully we'll see him come back and be as good as he once was. But let us not forget that we saw him run in the Lecomte. I mean, nobody was talking about him. That's why he was 43-1. Was it a fluke? Was it the racetrack? I don't know. But that was an amazing performance by both horse and rider.
So I'd like to get your thoughts on this. I thought it was pretty interesting analysis the day after by Richie Migliori, who pointed out that horses that have a high cruising speed and have stamina a lot of times run better if you just let them roll as opposed to trying to excessively rate them and, sort of take some of that speed away from them. That a lot of them run better if you just give them their head and let them stretch the race out.
Randy, I think the post position probably played into that because he had the outside post. And there was not only did he get this easy lead, there was a lot of other speed that drew inside of him. And I imagine they looked at the race and said, if the only way we can win this is just sort of, be the speed of the speed and try to outrun these horses and make sure that nobody caught them. And it worked out perfectly. I mean, there were some horses in there that had speed. For instance, we were talking podcast last week about American Promise from the one post. He didn't show any speed at all. I want to get back to East Avenue in a few minutes, but he also, we're thinking he's going to go right to the lead. He was close up to the pace, but he didn't give this horse any fight. I wonder if the other jockeys just said, this horse is 43-1. We'll ride our own race and we'll go by him whenever we feel like it, which jockeys will do that sometimes.
Well, as far as what Richie was saying is I agree with him. If you've got a horse that's got a little bit of speed and has some stamina and can grind out 12 and change, if you sit on that horse and hold him to like a 49.50 half, he's got no finish. There's no punch. Just let them keep on going and they'll keep going. And that's exactly what he did. And I firmly believe if he was sitting behind the pace, he's just going to keep going at whatever pace you go at.
So I know we have a lot of horse players watching this. I'll give you a woe is me horse players story. 48 hours before the Risen Star, I'm doing a little extra homework on the race. And I come across Chunk of Gold's race in the Leonatus Stakes at Turfway Park. Absolutely finished like a wild horse. And I loved the way he finished in that race. And so I tweeted out, I almost never tweet, but I tweeted out, this is really a good long shot to watch. And I was convinced, I didn't think he could beat East Avenue. I thought he would beat every other horse in the race except East Avenue.
Wow.
And he was 43-1. So I bet $400 in all sorts of win, exactas, trifectas, superfectas, and left out magnitude.
Oh, God.
And you didn't bet him to place either, right?
No, I didn't bet him across the board. No. I bet him to win, and then I hooked him up in all these exotics. But I'm thinking like you, Bill. The track is playing for speed and rail. He's got the far outside post. You've got speed on the rail with Lucas and American Promise. How the heck can you expect magnitude to go to the lead? They even try to go to the lead. Did he have that much speed? You couldn't tell. So anyway.
Certainly didn't look like in his past performances. You mentioned East Avenue. He was the 4-5 favorite. He finished in a dead heat for 10th. And what a disappointing effort. At least in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, we have that excuse of him stumbling at the start. To prepare for the podcast and just so we can bring you the latest news, I text Brendan Walsh this morning, how's the horse doing? And I fully expected you get something. He did something or other. He'll be sidelined for something or other. His quote is, he came out of the race fine. I don't know what we're going to do with him next. That Zoe, kind of boggled the imagination, boggled my mind. A horse that good ran that badly and there was no excuse. I guess it happens, but something is amiss with this horse right now. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, the question I need to ask is he that good?
He sure looked like it last year before the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, well, we've yet to see anything. I couldn't find any excuse for him either. I watched him again and again. And I don't know. Brendan doesn't know. Well, he's probably pulling out what little hair he's got left.
There's only one logical excuse. And as horse players, we've seen it time and time and time again. Some horses run significantly better with an unchallenged early lead, which is how he made his reputation by winning the Keeneland race, the Breeders' Futurity, on an unchallenged early lead. and ran a tremendous race. And we said in the podcast last week, the real question he's got to answer is that I thought it was going to be American Promise. If they go to the lead with American Promise and now East Avenue has to stalk instead of setting the pace, will he be as good as he was at Keeneland? And I think we got the answer to that. I at least now, at this stage of his career, I can't see how anybody after that effort can still have East Avenue in their top 10 of Kentucky Derby horses. And I had him near the top going into the Risen Star.
What about Big Balls Thornton? Does he have him in his top 10?
That's a good question. We'll find out because it's coming out this week, and we'll talk about Big Balls' number one horse that's not in anybody else's top 20. Runs this Saturday in the Battaglia at Turf Race, so we'll talk about that. All right, Rachel Alexandra was supposed to be a super prep for the Fairgrounds Oaks and the Kentucky Oaks. Race completely fell apart. You had two very major scratches. You had Simply Joking coming out and also Ballerina d'Oro, which left a field of 4 in that race. Simply Joking, Whit Beckman says that the horse had a bad blood count. The white blood cell count was off. And they were going to just live to fight another day. I have no idea what happened to the other horse, Ballerina d'Oro. But what's interesting about that race? 4-horse field. The other 3 jockeys, they certainly rode like to beat the Good Cheer instead of just going about their own business. And down along the inside, Saez was in a little bit of a pickle there. He found a way out and galloped through the stretch and won. Visually impressive. But how much do you learn, Zoe, from a 4-horse race?
She's undefeated. That's all you got to say. Nobody has beaten her yet. You can't beat who's not in there. She was good. Very good indeed.
No, she didn't have much to beat after the scratches, but she did it the right way. She was very visually impressive. And in my opinion, at least, I think she's got to be at the top of the list of Kentucky Oaks hopefuls at this point right now.
Other action over the last week, Baeza, you know him because he is the next in line of the Pukas. Puka, of course, is the dam of Mage, and then, of course, of the Dornoch. This is a 3-year-old trained by John Shirreffs. Career didn't get off to a great start. Matter of fact, he was making his 3rd career start on Friday at Santa Anita, but he looked awfully good. He won by 4 3/4 lengths, won by a mile. A couple of questions. Is he developing? Is he getting better? Or did he just wind up in kind of a weak race? Because remember, the start before that, he was absolutely clobbered by Rodriguez, one of those Bob Baffert horses who is not even in the top 2 in the Baffert barn. But it would be a lot of fun to see this horse make it into the Kentucky Derby or into the Kentucky Derby picture. And John Shirreffs, the trainer, who's a pretty conservative guy, has said, yeah, we're going to look at such things. So, Randy, is Baeza in your top 20, 15, whatever?
Tell you what, let's give Zoe a chance to tease first things first.
Ooh, okay.
Wasn't he good? All right, Baez is a good horse. I firmly believe he's a good horse. Now, they paid $1.2 million for him. They bought him off of Runnymede Farm. I can remember looking at him as a yearling. He's perfectly balanced. He's beautiful. If you saw him in the paddock on Saturday or Friday or whatever day it was, you only looked at that horse. Now, Bob had a couple in there. Varney was pulled up going into the first turn. It looked like he propped at something, shied from the dirt, did something, and he looked like he went funky behind. But it was just Juan Hernandez pulling him up because he thought something went awry and he was actually okay. But Baeza sat a beautiful trip under Hector Berrios, who'd worked him the week before. They put the blinkers on him when he broke his maiden, and he woke up like this. He's a good horse, guys. A really beautiful, good horse. And we're going to hear a lot more from him down the road. And
what I liked about him, go ahead.
No, keep going.
No.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, I was going to say what I liked about him, other than the pedigree. Obviously, you have to like the pedigree. 93 Beyer speed figure, so he ran fast. And he was green coming down the stretch a little bit. So you think there's room for improvement there with a little extra mental maturity. Maybe he was just messing around because he'd already put away the competition.
He doesn't like the whip. He smacked him once and he swished his tail and ducked in. He was like, no, thank you very much.
So he's smart.
Very smart.
Randy, you put down on the notes that we all follow our format that you want to talk about the Sunland Derby. Why? Tell us more about it.
It's a Kentucky Derby points race. And, and I think we have to at least mention if we think it's going to have any impact on the Kentucky Derby, because, Getaway Car won. He showed a lot of gameness. He wasn't the best horse in that race. The runner-up, Caldera, the My Racehorse horse trained by Wayne Lucas, didn't get away well from the starting gate, was caught 4 wide around the first turn, was also outside with a nice move around the second turn, looked like he put a head in front of Getaway Car turning for home, and maybe even had a head in front of him in mid-stretch, and then Getaway Car battled back along the inside to win in the narrowest of photo finishes. To me, Zoe, Getaway Car, even though he's out of a Keeneland mare, has always struck me as being the kind of horse that was ultimately going to be a better one-turn horse than a two-turn horse. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Getaway Car in a race like the Pat Day Mile on Kentucky Derby Day instead of the Derby. Because another point, after all, Getaway Car is a front runner. That seems to be his best go. And Baffert, SF Racing, the Avengers already have that spot kind of taken with Citizen Bull.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I don't know how big Caldera is for D. Wayne Lucas, but watching the pair of them come down the lane, he looks like an absolute monster galloping alongside a tiny little gazelle in gaming. Got this giant, big white elephant, and then you've got gaming down on the inside.
Getaway Car.
Getaway Car.
Yeah.
Gaming, Getaway. He was game anyway. Getaway Car down on the inside, who was as game as a pebble. Like, you cannot question his gameness, his moxie, none of that. But Caldera ran a winning race and just got nudged out, mugged on the wire by Getaway Car. How cool is it to see Bob and Wayne still going at it, hammer and tongs every step of the way? That was cool.
And Wayne's probably already got Arkansas Derby penciled in on his calendar now for Caldera, and rightfully so. He ran a good race.
Yeah, he's not missing a beat, and that leads us full circle to journalism, who has kind of fallen off everyone's radar, and we're going to remind him with First TV's Work of the Week. Journalism just beat Getaway Car in their last start, the Los Al Futurity. He may be one of the number one horses coming out of Southern California. Don't sleep on journalism. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. Ticket sales are now open for the 2025 Spring Meet to be held April the 4th through the 25th. A variety of ticket options for dining, grandstand reserved seating, and general admission are available. All tickets must be purchased in advance via Keeneland's official online ticket office at tickets.keeneland.com/racing. The 15-day spring meet features racing Wednesdays through Sundays with a daily first post of 1 p.m. Keeneland has increased the value of 16 stakes and will award a record $9.4 million in purses across 19 stakes this spring, highlighted by the Grade 1 Ashland on opening day and the Grade 1 Bluegrass on opening Saturday. We'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
Leslie's Rose, Sierra, Leon.
Mike, $5 million. Thank you.
Carl Spackler, a Mercy. She feels pretty.
This week's Fastest Horse of the Week brought to you by Cogburn, yet another of those fast sires from Windstar Farm, and boy, was he fast. At one point, of course, Cogburn was our fastest horse of the week last summer at Saratoga when he won the GIII Stakes. Coming out of that race, it not only turns out he was the fastest horse of the week, he was the fastest horse of the year with the 114 Beyer speed figure. And really one of the fastest horses ever if you look at 5.5 furlongs on turf. 59.80 is time in that race. Cogburn is now booked full in 2025, his initial season standing at stud at Windstar Farm, and Cogburn has something in common with this week's fastest horse of the week. Cogburn is a son of the sensational stallion Not This Time, as is Magnitude, our fastest horse of the week, from his 108 Beyer speed figure romp in the Risen Star, which we discussed in detail a little bit earlier.
Welcome in now. The Gainesway Guest of the week is none other than Mark Casse. He's going to have a busy weekend at Oaklawn Park, where his top Derby contender Sandman will be going in the Rebel Stakes, the 11th race on Saturday. Welcome, Mark. And if you go back to Sandman's last race in the Southwest at Oaklawn, that race in defeat turned him into having so many more fans because it was such a difficult trip. Is there any doubt in your mind if he gets a clean trip, he not only wins that race, but wins it easily?
I'll leave that to you guys. I mean, I would think so, but take nothing away from the winner. I know going in, I had said, Bill, that we were going to find out whether he was a man or a boy. I think he proved he was a man. You know, we all know over the years we've seen a lot of horses good horses not to be able to overcome what he was able to overcome. So I don't know about everybody else, but I came away from the race extremely impressed.
Well, here's what I find interesting, Mark, and I kind of try to put myself in your shoes. A lot of trainers, every trainer, when a horse has issues behind the gate, in the gate, leaving the gate, they'll take him to the gate, school him in the mornings, all sorts of different ways. Sandman's problem last time in the Southwest, to me, happened after he left the gate. Like the first stride out of the gate, he broke okay, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it's like he almost tried to prop or wheel or lurch to his left. How does a trainer try to rectify something like that, or is there any way to do it?
I don't really think so, Randy. He is so smart. He does everything right. I just think it was a fluke. And I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel with him. He's done everything perfect. I'm just going to say it was a fluke, and we're going to go from there. We take him back and stand him, but he's not even, for a Tapit, he's amazing. Knock on,
Well, Mark, he is one cool dude. I can attest to that. Take me back to the beginning when you bought him, because he came out of the Lothenbach dispersal. We all looked at the same horse at OBS last year. He was kind of like this fat, baby-looking, beautiful, well-balanced Tapit who just galloped on the track. How did you manage to persuade your owners to plonk down 1.2 million on a horse just on a basic, easy gallop? I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong by any means, because he was gorgeous.
Oh, that's easy. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. You know what? We were fortunate. John Green, they came to me. They said, "What do you think of him?" I said, "I love him." Terry Finley came to me, said, "What do you think?" I said, "I love him." And I have no idea. The way I normally do it is I go around and make my choices, tell them, and I stay out of it. When he brought 1.2 million, I said, "Well, I guess we didn't get him." And then I walked back there, and luckily we did. I have to tell you, from the beginning, he came to our farm, which is 5 minutes from OBS, to our training center, and boom, boom, boom. He would just do things with ease. I found over the years, the better the horse, the less it takes to get them ready. And he was like, just boom, 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 just did everything right. In fact, he did so much right that we were getting ready to send him out. And we have a professional gate guy who works at our gate 3 days a week, can okay horses for all over the country. We can run right off. And I said, "I'm going to breeze this horse with these two older horses. And he goes, "You're going to breeze? You can't do that." And I said, "Oh, yes, I can." And I did it. And amazing. I worked him with two older stake horses and he blew them away.
So you mentioned his mind. He's smart, right? Yeah.
He's never done anything. He's just done everything right and just never misses a beat. And in all honesty, his first couple races, I was pretty disappointed. I was expecting big things out of this horse. And even his, he broke his maiden in Saratoga and beat a pretty good horse of Wayne's. And I was happy with that. But I kind of came away every race thinking that there was more there. And I was disappointed in him. The allowance race at Oaklawn, I thought was a really good race. I thought he settled nice. I think he wants to kind of run into the bit. All along in those sprint races, you're asking. He doesn't want that. He wants you to grab him and he wants to get into this beautiful rhythm. You've seen him. He has an extremely nice stride. And I thought Christian did a great job. One, how he stayed on, I don't know. And then he didn't panic. He just let him kind of get his act together. And for him to run as well as he did was impressive. We've got a pretty good post. And he's been through a few wars, which going forward is going to be extremely important, as we know. So we'll see. I'm hoping my hope is that we get a good racetrack. Drives me crazy as a trainer. When you go into big races, you're trying to find out answers. And when you get a bad racetrack, you never know. So I just hope we get a good racetrack.
Do you think you'll run? I mean, it's supposed to be pretty bad this weekend.
Rumors tell me that we may get pushed back to Sunday, but I have not heard any confirmation. That was yesterday. Haven't heard a lot more about it. I think I was told that the California jockeys were allowed to take mounts on Saturday in California. So I don't know if that's true or not. Only read it. As I said, I got home at 1 o'clock this morning. I was in Tallahassee last night. So,
Mark, does all the missed training time at Oaklawn concern you? Because now you get to go up against horses like from California that haven't missed any training time and horses that have been down at the fairgrounds. What are your thoughts on that?
Randy, we missed a lot more training going into the Southwest. My thought was we missed a lot of training. The good news is, and it's something that I've done with my Derby prospects in the past, I usually don't give them a lot of time off. I kept him going because I feel sometimes you run some big races. Next thing you do, you give him some time off and you're playing catch up. I've never felt like he was playing catch up. I thought he was ahead of the game. So missing a little time was not a big deal. The other thing is, look, we're all at disadvantages. Yes, we didn't get as much training, but we're not shipping in. We're playing in our house. These other horses have to come from big, different environments. You come from South Florida and it's 90 degrees and you go into the cold and you go into California. A lot of things can happen during those ships. So I kind of felt like we were on the same page, same link. And we haven't hardly missed any training going into this race. We did move his work up a little. I had planned on breezing him on maybe Wednesday, so give him 10 days out from the race. And we ended up going on Sunday because we looked at the weather and said, let's do that. But trained great this morning, trained great yesterday. May not get to train tomorrow, but he's ready.
Mark, you've got a 3-year-old filly that's kind of sneaking up on people. LaCara, who won the Suncoast Stakes at Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday. That normally isn't a major race on the road to the Kentucky Oaks, but she looked awful good. And what's next for her? And what do you think of her performance?
Well, I think didn't Bill, Eclipse's filly Todd's filly, came out of there. Ended up being a good. That race is kind of sneaky good. I think the Suncoast, and the reason why you'll see horses go there is Gulfstream doesn't give us a 2-turn race. And if you're trying to get a 2-turn race and you want to stay in Florida, you got to go to the Suncoast. And that's why I did it. We went to California with, I think, 7 Breeders' Cup horses. We didn't win any, but most of our horses showed up and ran well. She did not. And I don't know why, because she trained great into the race. But again, not every horse can take shipping and going. And so she was very disappointing to me. Brought her home to our training center in Ocala, gave her a very short time off, sent her to Palm Meadows and to Nick Tomlinson, one of my main. Nick's been around a lot of our good horses, does a great job. And she trained like a good horse. Dylan worked her a few times. And, in the paddock at Tampa, I said, just be tied on. He goes, I know. So, but she impressed me. I thought the race, obviously we got lucky because the favorite or the horse to beat got away bad, but she ran fast and did it easy.
Well, Mark, and as we saw today, and as we've all been talking about, I mean, not every horse can take winning a Kentucky Derby prep race by 8 lengths and running a 108 Beyer speed figure, because now Magnitude has been knocked off the Kentucky Derby trail with an ankle chip. What kind of Yes, he's now out. So what kind of personality does a trainer have to have?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, when trainers,
sorry to hear that for Steve.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to hear that for Steve. Yes.
Yeah, and that's my question. I mean, trainers have to deal with this on a daily basis, knowing that every time they walk into the barn in the morning and check on some of their top horses, or every time they go out for a routine gallop or breeze and come back, you got to be holding your breath. I mean, what kind of personality does a trainer have to deal with that, that looming disappointment that always seems to be right there lurking in the background?
What's amazing is I'm 64, just turned 64. My family has a history of high blood pressure. I'm the only guy that doesn't have high blood pressure in my family, and I take no medication. So how do I deal with it? It is what it is. I can't change anything. So I try not to worry about something I have no control over. When you're faced with adversity, you handle it the best way you can. And I would say my number one thought is this, and I tell owners this: if you're playing in this game, you're already in the top 1 percentile in the world. You are lucky. And that's the way I look at it. Look, you have to have a positive attitude. So many people said, oh, you must have been so disappointed with Sandman, that he didn't win. And I said, no, I wasn't disappointed. I mean, I was disappointed he didn't win, but I learned so much. And there were so many more positives to take out of it. The same way, I don't know if you remember, but when Laura Will almost went down in the Kentucky Derby, everybody's like, you have to be dead. How could you do it? And I said, my horse is alive. Nobody got killed. He's going to get to do this another day. I'm just going to look forward to the next one. So that's how I handle it. And if something goes wrong, it wasn't meant to be. Maybe it could mean that, one of my family members may have been driving somewhere to go to this, or I may have been, and something could have happened. You look at the plane yesterday in Toronto that flipped over, the Delta Airlines. Do you know how many times I have flown into Toronto on Delta, that same plane? And
Wow.
So that's the way I look at things. I sleep I don't go to bed worried about it. I wake up and I deal with whatever's thrown at me that day. And I have a lot of things thrown at me.
Well, that seems to be the only attitude to have. Mark, this is completely off topic, but you're an animal lover, and having known you over the years, you're usually surrounding yourself by a goose, a duck, a pet squirrel or something. Do you have anything unusual in your menagerie right now?
Well, we have amazing deal. We have a couple geese that come every year, have their babies. They leave, they bring their babies back, and about a month later, as they're there for a month, they start making them. You can see where they make them leave, and then they have more. And so we're excited about that. We have two beautiful ducks. I don't know where they came from, but from Africa, that showed up. And, over the years, my favorite pet of all was I had a raccoon, George Cooney. We loved him. We had him from when his eyes.
Cooney. I love it.
Pointing, I had we had a otter show up one day, and we have a big pond, and I would go out and feed him, and his name was Oakley, and he would come and I would feed him. And we had a big tornado hit, and a tree fell into the pond. I haven't seen Oakley since. And my wife will I was so disappointed. So you're right. We have two miniature donkeys. We have two goats. We have 75 ducks in our front. We had an amazing thing happen about a month ago. 40 white pelicans flew in. I don't know if I have any more fish because they were eating them all. They're wiping it. So yes, you're correct. I live in paradise. Again, that's how I handle it. I have a beautiful wife, a beautiful home. I'm a very lucky guy.
Mark, switching subjects again, and I know there's not a whole lot you can say about this because a lot of things are going on behind the scenes, but what at this point can you tell us about the decoupling effort in Florida with Gulfstream Park? What's the latest, and what are the horsemen now trying to get accomplished so that this doesn't happen?
Well, I think the number one thing we have to do, Bill, and this is you're going to hear about it here in the next 24 hours, was we brought a group together to bring all horsemen together to go in one direction. So we're working on that. I think we were a little stunned by the news, but we shouldn't have been. We cannot allow one person anymore to control our destiny. So we're working diligently to see what we can do. We have some very big people, and we'll end up succeeding. But it's a battle, and it's not easy. And it may be the last thing I do, but something's going to get done. So
you say you'll end up succeeding. So are you saying that
I always go in thinking I'm going to,
okay.
I'm not a loser, so I will succeed. Am I saying that I know something that somebody else? No, I don't. I just know that we have a great group of people, and not just people, but organizations that understand how important Florida racing is to our entire racing world. It's not this goes much farther than Florida. This is Kentucky. This is New York. This is California. We cannot afford to lose this battle. If we lose this battle, we lose everything. And that's just not an option.
So, translation, you're very optimistic that ultimately the Florida legislature will not allow the decoupling.
Oh, I didn't say that. No.
Oh, you didn't?
No, it's still a battle. No, it's a battle, Rand. It's a battle. I can't promise you that. I can tell you that we are fighting at it very hard, and I can't make you that promise. I wish I could, but I can't. But we're not going to stop. So that's all I can tell you.
Okay.
Very good. Well,
It's a
Mark,
battle.
thank you so much.
This is not a foregone conclusion. So everybody that's listening, if you can help, because it's going to take all of us.
All right. Well, Mark, keep up the good fight as far as that goes with the decoupling. Best of luck with Sandman and the Rebel. Hopefully you'll get a much better trip this time. And we'll see you in the winner's circle on Saturday. Mark Casse, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And our guest of the week, Mark Casse, brought to you by Gainesway, like his namesake Jake LaMotta in the film Raging Bull, the stallion Raging Bull. It's as tough as they come. He earned $1.7 million. He started in 15 Grade 1 stakes races. He hit the board in 9 of those 15. He won 3 Grade 1s at 3, at 5, and 6, plus a Grade 2 and a Grade 3 at Saratoga to boot. Raging Bull consistently competitive at the highest levels over multiple racing seasons, 7 races in which he earned a 100-plus Beyer speed figure. He is also a son of Dark Angel, a perennial leading European sire of both sprinters and milers. Raging Bull's first yearlings sold last year for $420,000, $410,000, etc. His first 2-year-olds hit the track this spring. Gainesway, power, passion, performance.
Introducing a stallion, as top class as they come. In 22 career starts, he won or placed in 12 graded stakes, competing in 15 Grade 1s, earning over $1.7 million. His undisputed speed is evidenced by 7 100-plus Beyer speed figures, a 3-time Grade 1 winner, Raging Bull.
In this week's edition of First Things First, now, Randy gave you just a little inkling of what's going on here. I caught up with trainer John Shirreffs to discuss the very impressive maiden winner Baeza, and also John may have taken a little bit of umbrage with me calling him a patient trainer. All right, John. We're 12 hours in. Let me see. Do you have a bit of a fever? Is there some Derby fever going on here yet?
It's raging. It's absolutely raging.
Tell us about your horse. He looks fabulous. I just stopped by and saw him.
Yeah, no, he looked really good yesterday, and he came out of the race very well. He's one of those horses that, it always looks good, right? He always has a nice coat, which you love in a racehorse.
And the race?
And the race was superb. Hector was extremely happy after the race. I thought the horse ran really well. I loved his determination and how he stuck to the job. He's been at times unfocused and a little immature, but, he's getting there.
You're a very patient trainer, and you've...
No, why do you say that, Zoe? Why do you say that? I'm not patient at all. I want everything to run as soon as possible.
Okay, well, you started him on the grass, was my question.
Okay.
And the reasoning?
The reasoning was I did not want to leave Del Mar without getting a race into him. In his training in the morning, he didn't show a lot of speed, so certainly with his pedigree and his siblings, I didn't want to embarrass him, so I thought, well, I'll put him on the turf, and I'll go long with him, where it'd be more difficult on the dirt to go long first time out. So I thought, I'll edge it as much as I possibly can and hopefully get a nice performance.
Where are we going next, John?
Well, that's a good question. I'll discuss that with Mr. Searing and then make a decision. Our time is a little short to get a point. So in reality, Baeza will determine where we go.
Would he likely stay home?
Oh, yeah. How can you beat California weather? Why would you go anyplace else? What's the matter with these people, right? California's where it's at.
Love that. And yes, why would anybody possibly not want to be in California? Racing does continue along with the sunshine in Southern California. Friday through Sunday, we'll have lots of good racing on hand. And we're just gearing up to the 1st of March for the first racing tour. Do want to remind you to get your tickets now. We have lots of great racing, including the Grade 1 Big Cap, the Grade 1 Kilroe Mile, and an important prep towards the Kentucky Derby. That all coming on March the 1st. So, guys, what did you think about John Shirreffs taking umbrage to me calling him a patient trainer?
Is there any more patient?
No, he wants to run them as soon as he can.
All right, there you go.
He's a good horse. Mark my words. We're going to see a lot from Baeza.
Yeah, well, that will certainly be exciting, of course, with his pedigree and the remarkable story of the Mayor Puka. Things that happened off the track last week. I thought the biggest story was the betamethasone. You remember that from the Bob Baffert saga. Well, it is back in the news, and this time it's Todd Pletcher who got a positive for betamethasone. The horse, let me find that. With the horse by the name of Vassimo, who actually ran Saturday in the Risen Star Stakes, and he tested positive for betamethasone in his first career start on December 14th at Gulfstream, which he won. He then came back in January at Tampa, was apparently clean in that race, and then didn't run very well in the Risen Star. A lot to talk about here, but I got you some numbers and some statistics. How many betamethasone positives have there been since Haiwu took over? If you remember with Baffert, it was before the Haiwu-Heisa era. All this stuff was done by the Kentucky Racing Commission. This was the eighth person. He's the eighth person to get a betamethasone positive since Haiwu took over. And in each case, the penalties were exactly the same for all the trainers. You have a disqualification of a covered horse's race results, including forfeiture of all purses and other compensation, prizes, trophies, points, and rankings, and repayment or surrender of $500 measly. Now,
wait. You mean they didn't get 2 years?
That's the point. I mean, it's not exactly apples to apples because the Baffert thing had some other storylines to it. But my goodness, how do you look at this and say, presumably Todd Pletcher for the same offense is going to get $500 and Bob Baffert got 3 years when it all came down to it? And, you know, I think as time has gone on, people, even myself included, have become more and more of the attitude that Baffert was treated very unfairly. And if this doesn't point that out, nothing does. Todd Pletcher, be careful. Don't be getting these positives, but he certainly didn't give this drug to this horse as a performance enhancer. And nonetheless, I think Todd can certainly afford the $500 fine that's coming his way. Zoe, what'd you make of all this?
So he gets a betamethasone. He's allowed to run at the fairgrounds, owned by Churchill Downs. Imagine if Bob had a horse running in the Risen Star and got a betamethasone. Would he be allowed to run at the fairgrounds owned by Churchill Downs?
Good question.
I don't think so. I don't know. We're moving goalposts, aren't we?
Yeah, it's likely to be more than $500 based on the reports I read, because Pletcher had a positive for another therapeutic medication, an overage. I think it was last year. According to the regulations now for Haiwu, he faces either a 1 week or a 2 week suspension. 2 weeks if he challenges unsuccessfully, 1 week if he acknowledges that he was at fault with the positive. But I mean, a lot of people out there on social media are saying, "Hey, Baffert got 2 years. Let's see what Pletcher gets. Let's see if there's any fairness here." Well, keep in mind, it was Churchill Downs that gave Baffert the 2 year suspension, not the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. It was a unilateral decision by Churchill Downs because Bob had a previous issue in the Kentucky Oaks, and now this happened with Medina Spirit in the Kentucky Derby. And Churchill felt compelled to, in their words, to sort of protect their property there. But yeah, it's interesting. It just goes to show you that when you play at the level of a guy like Todd Pletcher with so many different horses that he has to train, it's inevitable that any trainer that has that many horses is going to have the occasional medication overage, something that either falls through the cracks administratively, or, maybe something stays in a horse's system a little longer than expected because of metabolism or maybe contamination or whatever.
So who's excited about the Saudi Cup? Anybody? Raise your hand.
Me?
You are, Zoe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm totally excited about it.
Another defection this week. I've never seen a race fall apart like this. Laurel River, who won the Dubai World Cup last year, he's now out as well. Sixth or seventh major horse to come out of the Saudi World Cup. The rattle and roll for Kenny McPeak. Don't be surprised if he comes in and wins this. Knowing Kenny, this is something that he would absolutely pull off. And we have Straight No Chaser, the Eclipse Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, running in the $2 million Riyadh Dirt Sprint. But I think we talked about this last week, and Randy, you were of the opinion that it's just a bad year, bad luck. These things happen, and there's nothing more to read into it. But am I excited about it? No, I'm not.
Well, you're burying the lead.
Yes.
Yeah. Romantic Warrior has won more money than any horse in the history of horse racing. And now he is going to switch to dirt for the very first time in his career to try to win the Saudi Cup, which is a huge story across the world. And he's got to beat Forever Young. It's China versus Japan, basically, because Romantic Warriors is a horse that's been based in Hong Kong throughout his career. We know how good Forever Young is. His trainer, that charismatic Yoshito Yahagi, won the Saudi Cup a couple of years ago, so he's got experience winning in Saudi. And then throw in Rattle and Roll, who won that, that famous prep, the custodian of the two holy mosques cup in Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, I think it's a fascinating race to see if Romantic Warrior can transfer his form to dirt, and if so, is he good enough to beat a horse that we know is really good and Forever Young?
Yeah, just because the US don't have any major horses in there doesn't make it a bad horse race whatsoever. I'm really looking forward to it. And there's a lot of good racing across the card. We'll get to see the Breeders' Cup Eclipse winner, the champion sprinter, Straight No Chaser. He actually had to work over the strip over there in 48 and change. Dan Blacker, very happy with the way Straight No Chaser is coming in. So good luck to those connections. Jose D'Angelo will have Howard Wolowitz over there, just to name a few. What about Chad Summers trying to go and win the Saudi Derby with Cyclone State, taking his 19-year-old rider over there, Luis Rivera, I believe. Is that his name? Luis Rivera? He rides him? I'm pretty sure that's right. So he's going to try and win the Saudi Derby. Do we think maybe he bounces off that and comes back over here? There's some good races.
And another little just interesting subplot, one more little thing. Last year, before Senor Buscador was shipped to run in the Saudi Cup, a Saudi resident, Shirreffs Mohammed Al-Hariri, leased a minority percentage of Senor Buscador from the Peacock family, Joey Peacock. And of course, we know how well that ended. And now he's done the same thing with Rattle and Roll, which is why Rattle and Roll went to Saudi Arabia to prep, and he stayed in Saudi Arabia, which is smart, instead of bringing him back to the U.S. and bringing him back to Saudi. After winning the prep race easily, he stayed over there. So Shirreffs Mohammed has a chance to have another big score here. The TDN Writers Room brought to you by the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association, the PHBA. The breeding sheds opened on Saturday, and as we told you last week, there are 10 new stallions who are now plying their trade in the state of Pennsylvania. And one of those we're going to introduce you to right now by the name of Tyson. Tyson won a couple of big stakes at Woodbine in 2023. He was Canada's champion older horse. He won the Seagram's Cup and the Dominion Day Stakes. He didn't just succeed and run well at Woodbine. He was also third in the Jockey Club Gold Cup at Saratoga. He's the son of Tapit. He hails from the female family of Grade 1 winners Streaming, and he stands for $3,500 in the great state of PA at Stone Jug Ranch. So you can breed to a Pennsylvania stallion, foal in Pennsylvania, and earn a 40% Breeders' Award paid to first through third in every Pennsylvania race, along with eligibility to run in those PA-bred or PA-sired stallion series that we tell you about periodically. And who is the poster child for those PA-bred awards? Uptown Charlie Brown, PA's leading stallion. His progeny have amassed $2 million in bonuses for their owners just over the last 2 years alone. That's $73,000 in average earnings per starter, all for a fee to breed to Uptown Charlie Brown of just $3,000 at Mountain Springs Farm. To earn more, you can call the PHBA. Here's your number, 610-444-1050. I think I have that number memorized by now.
PA Bred, I think we've built a brand at this point.
It's excitement at every step.
Roses for Deborah just set a new track record.
On average, for the past decade, Pennsylvania paid over $28 million a year in Breeders' Awards, restricted races, and owner bonuses. Plus, PA Bred shine on the world's biggest stage. Just 3 states have bred more Breeders' Cup winners. Learn more at pabred.com.
Be a smarter better with First TV, the best horses, with thousands of exclusive morning workouts. All at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart. Bet smart. With First TV.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by First TV, which used to be XBTV. It's now First TV. Take a look at Grade 2 winning 3-year-old Journalism. Now, he was among 229 horses to record time workouts on Sunday at Santa Anita. Journalism is trained by Michael McCarthy. He last took down the Grade 2 Los Al Futurity in December. Here he is working 5 furlongs in 1 minute and 4/5, sitting just to the outside of stablemate Evco. I'm not sure he could possibly be going any easier, to be perfectly honest. The Curling Colt is expected to make his seasonal debut in the Grade 2 San Felipe on March 1st, going 1.16 miles at Santa Anita. Boy, oh boy, does he look good here.
Well, we've had a lot of fun with TD Thornton's his top 12 on the road to the Kentucky Derby. He sort of thinks outside the box, maybe even a little way outside the box. But we're going to find out if he's a genius or not as soon as this Saturday night, as his number 1 horse on his top 12 First Resort will make his 3-year-old debut, not in the Louisiana Derby or the Arkansas Derby or the Florida Derby or the Risen Star, but in the John Battaglia Memorial, the 7th race at the fairgrounds, of course not the fairgrounds, at Turfway Park on coming up this Saturday. Zoe, this is not a very this is by no means an easy spot. He should win. He should be the favorite. Got a horse in there by the name of Baby Max, who's won last time out, won a stakes race. Coming in hot, has won a couple sprint stakes races. I guess the biggest question I've had for First Resort is how will he handle the synthetic surface?
I don't think he'll have a problem whatsoever. Being by Uncle Mo, they handle just about any surface. Listen, he's a good horse. He took down Jonathan's Way, who unfortunately was scratched out last weekend. We're not quite sure how good he's going to be as a 3-year-old, but he beat him in the Grade 2 Jockey Club at Churchill Downs. Like you said, he makes his synthetic debut. Owen Harty got horses at Turfway. He's worked very well over the strip. You can see by his work tab. 6 furlongs in 1:14. He threw down a bullet work in 59-2. It's lovely to see Luis Saez going to Turfway to ride him. Big Balls Thornton is on the right horse here for Owen Harty. And First Resort is without question the horse to beat in here. You mentioned Baby Max. I'm going to throw another horse at you. California Burrito for Tom Drury. He just took down a nice allowance race by 7 over there with a pretty good number, 83 by a speed figure. I think he may be the nearest competition for First Resort. And it will be interesting to follow what First Resort, win or lose, will do after this race,
because of the synthetic surface. This is a prep for the Ruby Stakes, Jeff Ruby Stakes, which is also on synthetic surfaces with a purse of $777,000. Very clever that they changed that to that. Would Owen Hardy dare go into the Kentucky Derby off 2 prep races on synthetic surfaces, or will he leave town from Turfway and go in a more traditional prep like the Bluegrass?
So I can offer a guess on that. I don't have any inside information. I haven't texted or talked to Owen about this, but my guess is that he will go to a dirt surface for First Resort's final prep, and here's why. The Battaglia wasn't his first choice. Owen was going to ship out of town for First Resort's initial race as a 3-year-old, but because of weather, his horse is based at Turfway. He got a couple of weeks behind in the horse's training, and so therefore he elected, he wouldn't have the horse ready to ship out of town earlier, so he penciled in the Battaglia as a substitute for start as a 3-year-old.
That explains that. Now, we just have learned a second ago, I think Jay Pribben put out a tweet, so we give him credit for breaking the news today on on Tuesday as we're recording this. But the big card at Oaklawn has been moved from Saturday to Sunday, the Rebel Stakes, the Honeybee, et cetera, with a lot of precipitation, a lot of bad weather expected. So hopefully by Sunday, they'll have the everything worked out. I don't get to talk much about my Kentucky Oaks top 10 because I'm so overshadowed by T.D. Thornton and all the fun that we have with that. And I'm the opposite of him. I got little, you know what, when I put the horses to me that figure the most. I don't go outside the box. My number one is Muhima, who, though Good Cheer, the stablemate, they're both from the Brad Cox barn. They could be 1 and 1A. She will be drew the rail post position in the Honeybee Stakes, which will be the 9th race now on the Sunday card. This race came up really good, as you'd imagine, with a $500,000 purse. Take Charge Milady for Kenny McPeak is in there. Look forward, Zoe, you should be very familiar with that horse, a California horse trained by Michael McCarthy, who is trying to win around 2 turns for the first time. Quiet Side always shows up, doesn't win that often, but they got a really good 13-horse field. Even on the outside, George Weaver, 5G, a horse that won the Cash Run Stakes last time out by 9 lengths. Zoe, who do you like?
I like 5G. I mean, Muhima is the horse to beat here. 5G, I've an inkling with all the storms rolling through Oaklawn Park that we're probably going to see not a fast track. And it's usually the case, especially on Saturdays and Sunday at Oaklawn, much like the fairgrounds, that they will have a sloppy track. The daughter of Vacoma, does she want to go 2 turns? I don't see why not. She's out of a quality road mare, and her run in the Cash Run was pretty sensational to watch visually. She's going to have speed from the outside. She gets around Ortiz aboard her. I really like her in there, even from post position 13.
That's the main issue with me and 5G. And you can say the same about Quiet Side out in post 12. I mean, the average American 1-mile racetrack has a 990-foot stretch run from the top of the stretch to the finish. Oaklawn's is about 1,100 feet. What that means is that the finish line is further down the stretch, which means that 1 16 mile races start closer to the first turn at Oaklawn than they do at most 1-mile tracks. It's even worse at Churchill Downs. But there's very little time for riders to get position at Oaklawn, leaving the starting gate at 1 16 before they hit that first turn. But you got the Ortiz brothers on those 2 horses. Right? Jose is on Quiet Side. Irad is on 5G. I think Muhima is obviously the horse to beat, but I also think she's probably going to be even money or 6 to 5. And I don't think she's worth that short of a price. So it's going to be a fascinating race to see exactly what happens.
The prep for the boys is the Rebel. Once again, will be run on Sunday. We spent a lot of time earlier in the show talking to Mark Casse about Sandman. 4-1 in the morning line. Boy, I'd grab that all day long. That last race was so impressive. I mean, the horse did everything wrong and only got beat a length, and probably in another 5-6 jumps, might have even got up. This horse lived up to its potential in defeat, 1.2 million, unless something goes wrong with the trip again. I think that maybe Mr. Thornton might have this one as his number one in his next top 12 poll, because I know he's got him number 2. And if he goes out and runs a hole in the wind in the Rebel, we've got a serious horse on our hands here.
Hey, he's set up here to run a hell of a race. Really. I mean, we talked to Mark. The horse is doing exceptionally well. He's a horse that sits a little off the pace if everything goes well, not as far back as he was in the Southwest. And there is a ton of early speed in this race. This is going to be a really aggressively paced race, which also helps Sandman. So I'm expecting Sandman to run huge.
Me too. I really am. And, it's funny. I went into Baffert's office the other day and he was trying to figure out, if he was going to send a horse, who he was going to send, and had spoken to Pat Pope about the weather. And, there's a storm rolling in there if we ship in. The chances are you're not going to be able to train anyway. So all of these were going through his mind. So he wound up just sending one in Madacat Road, who would be probably one of his lesser 3-year-old candidates in there. I mean, honestly, if you take Sandman out of the equation, this race is wide open. I mean, you want to talk about, an upset or an exacta. I don't know where. Look at Hypnus, just one start in the slop at the fairgrounds. He ran a good number that day. The Intermischief colt out of Dream Tree for Brookdale Racing and Ken McPeak. Madacat Road's in there with some good numbers, having run just so in the Bob Lewis last time out. Innovator's always there with a squeak for Dwayne Lucas. It's a good betting race. And if you're going to get 4-1 on Sandman, you're going to make some money in some vertical wagers for sure. You are.
Which you won't. You won't get 4-1 on Sandman. He's 4-1, but he's the favorite in the morning line. That's how evenly matched the odds maker at least thinks. I'm expecting 2-1, maybe even 9-5 on Sandman by the time they actually run. Tiz-tastic's in there as well for Steve Asmussen, but again, Jose Ortiz has got his work cut out for him. Jose has the 12 hole in the Honeybee. Now he's got the 13 hole with Tiz-tastic in a 14-horse field in the Rebel.
No one mentioned the pride of Delta Downs, Cole Battle, who won 2 straight and beat a bunch of these in the Smarty Jones last time out for trainer Lonnie Briley. Why not, guys?
Why not? Wide open.
Yeah.
Why not? He'll be part of the pace, that's for sure.
The question is if he's fast enough. Really. But he won the Smarty Jones with just an 84 buyer speed figure, and that was boosted because of the slow pace of the race. I think he's going to be stalking maybe 2-3 lengths back, sitting on the inside, because you just got so much early speed in here. I mean, you've got Innovator, who has got to go for Wayne Lucas. You've got Smokin' Wicked, who's been sprinting in some pretty fast fractions occasionally down at the fairgrounds. You've got Speed King, who won the Southwest, who's been on the lead in all 3 of his lifetime starts. Some of those horses from the outside post might be, sent on, like Tiz-tastic maybe. A Hot Gunner from post 14 if he runs. So the pace is going to be really hot. And Cole Battle, I think, is going to be off the pace this time. But is he fast enough? That's the question.
The Kentucky Horse Racing and Gaming Corporation has announced that a record $20 million in awards is on the way to the breeders participating in the Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund program. First implemented in 2005, the KTBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds winning eligible races worldwide. Last year, Kentucky breds won 72% of graded races in the U.S., all 3 legs of the Triple Crown, and 10 Eclipse Awards. Bloody hell. Our history is proud and our future remains bright, said Governor Andy Beshear.
With some of the fullest fields in the country and quality racing year-round, there's never been a better time to reap the rewards of breeding and racing in Kentucky. Purse money in Kentucky is at an all-time high, as is average purse per race, outpacing California, Florida, and New York. Kentucky breds. Breed them. Raise them, race them. We all win.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
And the TDN Writers Room is brought to you last but certainly not least by our good friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. We've talked a lot already about Sandman, who we think is going to be a relatively solid favorite in the Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn Park now on Sunday. Well, guess who's the part owner of Sandman? That would be West Point Thoroughbreds. But it's not just Sandman that they have in the Rebel. They are also, West Point, part of the partnership that owns Bullard, who's been shipped in from Southern California by trainer Michael McCarthy, also running in the Rebel, stretching out for the first time in the Rebel. West Point also had a nice weekend last weekend, where at the fairgrounds on the Risen Star undercard, a nice two-turn maiden win by Yinzer and jockey Keith Asmussen for Hall of Fame trainer Steve Asmussen.
That's a wrap on this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank my partners in crime, Randy Moss and Zoe Cadman, as well as our producers and editors who work so hard behind the scenes. That's Katie Petruniak, Sue Finley, Anthony LaRocca, and Alita LaRocca. And a special thanks to our Gainesway Guest of the Week, Mr. Mark Casse. Hope to see you next week. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you then.